All right, we're live. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to probably the last stream at NAB 2022 at the SCP Exonet Services booth. We are sitting with the man, the myth, the legend himself, Kenneth, the one that started this all. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How have you been?
Not too bad, not too bad.
These streams have been great.
I appreciate that. I'm finally glad I get to get you on one and get you out there and ask the hard-hitting questions that everyone wants to know. You ready?
Yeah, definitely. Let's do it.
All right, so let's just rip the Band-Aid off. You see behind me the exominers. I know that the question is, when can we get our hands on some more?
Well, we're sitting here in Jeff Bezos' backyard, and we're trying to decide exactly when we want to pull the trigger on this next launch. And we had hoped to do it this week. But let's talk a little bit about what's kind of holding us back from doing it. So everybody knows that back in December, we had a number of these videos that took off, and we're grateful to all of the press that we've received. But at the end of the day, what happened was our network was not yet totally prepared for the numbers of folks that showed up. And so we watched our network grow from 350 to we hit about 3,500, and I started kind of getting to the place where I said, this is going to get challenging really quickly, because what I could see in the future is a lot of people asking, hey, where are the revenues? How are we supposed to earn any money on this thing? This isn't really what I thought it was supposed to be. And if we had gone all the way up to where it looked like it was going, which was probably going to be about 10,000 providers, there wasn't anybody going to be making anything, and it probably would have come flooding back to earth very quickly. So we limited the number of exominers we sold in that batch, even though there were a lot of people that wanted to continue to place those orders. Partially also because we knew that we were going to be supply constrained, and we were, and we worked through that. I'm pretty pleased to say that we almost got the entire batch shipped before the show. We're still about 50 units away from completing that first batch order, but they should be going out here this week and next, and we'll complete the batch totally. And then I think we're going to next week launch the new batch formally and get that off the ground. The challenge of the batch 2 units is that we have something like 15 to 18,000 names on a wait list. And I don't know exactly how many of those are still legitimate, but I gotta believe it's going to be something like 15 to 20% that will be certainly interested in following through with an order. And that's significantly higher than the batch 1 that we put out the door, right? So we're going to go ahead and launch, and we will probably limit the batch numbers again. But how far we limit it, I don't know yet. But I do know that if you've been waiting and you're serious, that you need to have funds ready to go over the course of the next week to 2 weeks, because you will get your opportunity.
Okay. When those the availability is ready, and we want to be ready as a consumer to get our hands on one of them, what are some of the payment methods? Because last time I believe we were able to do card, PayPal, USDC. Is going to be something similar?
Yeah, and you know, I've tried to be as transparent about this whole thing as I possibly could. You know, when we limited it to crypto before, that was new. I mean, when people were buying the first 300 units from the summer on, I think we started selling in June of 2021. They got to use PayPal and credit card and whatever. I mean, it was a standard purchase, and you could buy them from whatever. But when we got to this thing where we knew we were doing a pre-order, we were pretty clear what it was going to look like based on the supply chains. I mean, there was weird things. There were 79 ships sitting in the port of Los Angeles when we made our major chassis order. For a huge chunk of chassis were sitting in one of those ships, and we couldn't access them. We couldn't do anything. So if you expose yourself to credit card orders in that environment, then you're going to have to be ready to deal with all kinds of credit card chargebacks. And I just said, look, we don't want to get into that kind of situation. We instead made it really clear on the website that you have to be fine with waiting for these things. We're going to go way out of our way to make sure you're not waiting 9 months, you know, hint like some others. But at the same time, you can't give up after 90 days and say, look, I want my money back, because we're sending the money overseas to get these components locked up, right? So, you know, it's just the way the whole thing works in this weird supply chaining world where just-in-time componentry and warehousing and, you know, supply chains just doesn't exist anymore. And it's probably never going to exist again like it did, because we exposed all the weaknesses of it in the COVID world.
Right.
All right, so long story short, and I know I do this a lot, but so this batch will actually go out on all payment methods. We will allow credit cards, we will allow PayPal, we will allow, you know, all of the mechanisms and crypto. And this time around, crypto will be smoother because we changed processors. Our processor was not great last time. That caused wrinkles and problems and so forth. So this time around, you'll have the full, you know, panoply of options to purchase.
Can we use SCP?
No.
Oh, man. Now, when we were discussing about the supply chains and some of the issues with getting them, and you know, we talked about, we mentioned like a 9-month wait, like some Helium miners that we're still waiting for. One thing that some people might be concerned with, and you said 90 days. Do we have a little bit better of a turnaround now than we did, like, say, in 2021 with getting the order in and the pre-order in?
Let's turn that question slightly a different direction. What happened with the units on this current batch was kind of interesting, because there were problems with very specific components on getting them, just getting them across. But what also happened in the middle of the batch was that some of our vendors sort of slipped up with us a little bit, and some of the quality that was coming across just wasn't going to get it. And we started seeing some, you know, return rates and things that were not going out, you know, like LEDs on the unit themselves, you know, that were not really, you get 3 green lights and then 1 that was missing. And even though it didn't affect the performance of the unit, you can't really ship a product like that and expect people to enjoy it and be delighted and so forth. And so we had a number of returns that we had to deal with. And when you're sending stuff back and forth from Shenzhen, China, during this supply chain crunch, you kind of get into a place where you stretch and elongate things out and so forth. So yes, and that's what's held me up from pulling the trigger on the order, because I've been working to kind of get that quality issues nailed down in a way that we could turn around and we could say, we know that what we're going to be getting from the folks this time around is going to be good to go, and we're not going to have to stop and start production and stop and start production. And so I want to say that we are going to get the numbers down into the 3 to 4 month range again with a double, triple batch, right? Or maybe shorter time frame if we did the same size type of batch. I want to do closer to like 3,000 units this time, because though I think that's what we're looking at. Okay. And in that case, I do think it's going to be 3 to 4 months to get those in. But the deal is that everything takes 3 or 4 months now. I mean, it doesn't even matter. You know, the minute you start ordering 5, 10 of anything, you have to wait.
Yeah. So, so we were saying about 3,000 in this batch. After we complete the batch, is there going to be an extended wait for the next batch, or you kind of have what the next chance is? Because we're probably going to have some demand for the miners, and then people aren't going to get them, unfortunately. It's just how it goes. Do you have a game plan for the next batch that you'd be thinking of?
I think this year is going to be really fascinating. I think it's going to happen in a really leapfrog kind of way, and I think there's going to be a lot of back and forth going on, because what's going on right now, and I want to just kind of dive into this again. Sorry to divert the question a little bit, but I think this is really important. So what happened halfway through this batch is we started listening to the DIYers in our community, and when this thing blew up, was the DIYers that showed up that really pushed these numbers really up the ladder. And we ultimately concluded, we said, well, look, we really want, I think at this point, to build a more consistent network. And, you know, it caused a lot of back and forth with the community about keeping DIY forever and grandfathering and all sorts of stuff. And ultimately, we made a decision pretty strongly to go ahead and do software licensing. And so we've now since released, or at least we haven't released the software, but what we have released is the ability to purchase the software. And if you purchase within April, pretty much surrounded by the show, you get some pretty significant rebates back on them to really encourage you to come aboard and to get that license out of the way. And in that process, what's happened is people have revealed themselves to be sort of anti that. They don't want to pay for a license. They don't think it's right that they should have to pay to be on this permissionless network. And we certainly agree with that. It is permissionless and you don't have to pay for the license. You can continue to stay on the network and earn revenues however they come in. But look, we're here. We've spent over $50,000 to be here, right? To be in this placement, to be at this venue where very large amounts of data are created and thrown off onto storage networks, and we want to get in there and get, you know, some of that data transferred over into our network so that we can start this process out strongly, so that providers are making money. Right. That's really what it's all about, is providers making money on the network. That kind of thing needs to be founded, you know, and I took a lot of heat because I got into an argument with a guy when I called him a free rider. But look, you spending money with Seagate doesn't make you an investor in this project. It makes you an investor in a hard drive, and you know, that is what it is. Anyway, license sales have been crazy. We've done about $100,000 worth of licenses so far in April, and what it's looking like to me is we're probably going to sew up about 40 to 50% of the DIY community into a formalized, will support the development team standing, right? And so right now we're building examiners by selling licenses to people that build their own systems, right? Because they're going to be able to build a qualified examiner. Well, the reason why I launched into that story is there are people that we're in contact with right now. Juicy's one in our community who are building their own units, and they will be sending units to us to validate based on the licensed software, and ultimately we will bless them and they will go off and become manufacturing partners, and I suspect we'll end up having 8 or 9 or whatever it'll end up being who will be building units. So it will be this continuous sort of leapfrogging. I think the project will always continue to build units, and there will be people that will always want to buy direct from the stores. But I also think there's going to be a lot of situations where new and unique and really creative platforms are going to show up. Guys will show up and build NUCs. They'll have, you know, rack-mounted rigs. They'll have just more vanilla NAS configurations. And I think ultimately there will be plenty of options to buy throughout 2022. And frankly, I don't care. It's not about we're trying to lock in the sales.
Right.
We're just trying to grow the network at the right pace, so that we don't pollute the network so hard that every individual provider doesn't earn. Right. And at the same time also to keep a consistency of platform so that our customers can count on there being plenty of performance, durability, availability, and geolocationing, so that our customers can rely on the network every bit as well as they rely today on AWS and the other platforms that are out there.
And that's good too, because we announced earlier today that the relayers are going to be available, and that's going to get out to the consumer. And you wanted to make sure that there was a big enough network of examiners and examiner licensed DIY to provide all that storage capabilities.
This is it's a really amazing synergistic platform when you look at all the components and how they tie together, and you do have to sort of mind the gap on every one of them, right? So if you ship a bunch of relayers out there to customers, and customers essentially can stand up VMs and run their own relayers, they can buy the one U from us, they can do all kinds of things to stand up a relayer to upload to the network and control their own data and keep that security and so forth. But what ends up happening is they might stand up a relayer in a part of the world where we don't yet have a lot of concentration. It's interesting to me, but for whatever reason, that area up around Belgium and the Netherlands and some of those places have gone just insane with providers, whereas places like Mexico are still fairly vacant. And so we have our job cut out for us to ensure that we have plenty of units in all the populated areas where people are going to really need to have storage, right? And so if we look on the map and we start to see that we have that, then we'll be fine. But I think ultimately what we're really about to enter into is this place where one hand feeds the other. The relayers get out there, they keep driving more XMiner sales. The relayers get out there, they keep driving more, and it just keeps going up and up and up. And what happens is at some point, that hockey stick faces north. Like with Helium, when they went from, whatever it was, some 10,000 nodes all the way up to 6 figures and then 500,000, and I don't even know where they're at now. And I think they're not even probably halfway through. I bet they probably end up going up another, complete 100% before they're all said and done.
Get into a 7-figure territory. Yeah. It's interesting you bring up Helium because it kind of leads me into a question in regards to being a provider. Has there ever been the talks or an idea of maybe putting a cap on how much one location can specifically have? Because I was looking at the map back here and you said like Germany and EU is exploding. We've got 1080 just listed there. Mexico has 8. But we look at Helium Network, which they want to provide the coverage, and we want to decentralize data. But is there a certain point where like my house might become a monstrous data center and almost would negate some of the idea if I have that much data available? I mean, I'm not going to be able to provide 40 pentahashes or pentagigs like that, but...
What ends up happening is a lot of times comparisons get made that don't quite always fit. And the one thing about storage it's always fascinating to me, it's almost hard for anyone in this game to really comprehend truly the scope and scale of storage that is currently needed and used and deployed in the world, but more importantly, where it's headed. And the media and entertainment industry that we're at NAB today is one of the real forefronts of where that big monstrous growth is going to come from, because what ends up happening every year at these shows, higher resolution cameras get released, new repurposing of media and video and content, new ways to deliver it, new channels to send it out there, cause more and more exponential growth of the actual storage required, and pushing it out closer and closer to the edge is the thing. So replicating data in all kinds of different locations starts to become a really big issue, and it all contributes. And then you take all kinds of other sort of tertiary industries that fit into this niche. So like, even like police, body cam fits into this niche, drone cam footage and all of that sort of stuff. And those resolutions are going up and higher and higher and higher and shedding off a lot of data. So what ends up happening is, instead of looking at some sort of matrix, some hexagon or whatever, and saying, there's 5 in there, it's, becomes saturated. It really doesn't do that. If there's 5 there, it's quite likely because around that area there's probably going to be consumers of that data available. And what could easily end up happening is you see areas that have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of petabytes of capacity available, and all of them getting used up. There's just no end to it. The saturation is never going to happen on a true consumer business used storage environment. The scope and scale when you start talking about zettabytes is so incredibly insane because we're all dealing and building computers right now that are based on terabytes.
Right.
And we've got 3 jumps to get to zettabytes, and there's already zettabytes of information being put out. And that's an exponential jump. It's 1,000x each time we go up the ladder. So when we start getting out there 5, 8, 10, 12 years from now, and there's 2,000 zettabytes versus the 47 that are out there today, you start to understand that we're going to use up every ounce of storage that's possibly available. And the people that are getting into this today will be totally prepared. They will be completely set up and incentivized. They will understand how to deploy and how to run, performant and proficient devices, so that they are always running ahead of the Johnny-come-latelys who say, oh, hey, isn't there a bunch of money to be made here? But even the Johnny-come-latelys are going to make money in this thing. So,
right.
But at the end of the day, I don't think we're going to see that saturation. I think that this is a thing that has a lot of decades of run to it.
Yeah, and I think with you guys adapting the licenses for the do-it-yourself miners, that really helps everything get ahead. I think there was a question here that I was going to touch base on earlier, but it seems like it was partially answered in our conversation. But D. Griff is asking, can you elaborate on the benefits of buying a do-it-yourself license in April?
Well, the benefit of buying a do-it-yourself license in April was really easy. You get it for free. What happens is you pay $99 and then you get a 100% rebate on that license. And this was look, the whole thing about the licensing was a concession to the DIY community. We sat down and talked about it, and we came to a conclusion that it probably made sense just to go ahead and just turn the entire network into a proprietary build. Not necessarily us building, other manufacturers could build and so forth, but a proprietary build that was validated by us, the manufacturer, from the project developer. And we got a lot of pushback. I mean, I get it. It's like people are like, well, so now you're going to just cut us off and blah, blah, blah. And so we said, okay, look, let's recognize the commitment there. Let's recognize what they brought to the table, and we'll give them an opportunity to play along. Here's what I think is going to happen, by the way. So DIYers, will have the ability to put those licenses in play and be fully on the same footing as, the official miners as far as getting data from our customers and being able to earn revenues on the network. The DIY rig is for somebody who's willing to babysit all of the various things that happen. They will have their own alerter set up. They will have their own ability to, understand and handle all port forwarding changes, anything that happen along those lines. It's just essentially somebody who's built something that they trust and works on their own. You're responsible for your uptime. That's really the key.
Yep.
If you can keep a unit up, then you're responsible, and ultimately we will throw data at you.
I got a good little question here in regards to the project. Akeem D is asking, can you ask Faust what keeps you up at night, if anything?
Modafinil.
Modafinil?
I thought everybody did nootropics. What keeps me up at night right now is something look, if you didn't come to this community party, it wasn't quite as off the hook as I had hoped, but it was pretty good. It was actually I think it actually turned out better than even I thought. And one of the things I said to almost everybody there, because I think I'm gaining a little bit of a reputation, I'm not really somebody who enjoys or really goes out of my way to be out in the public eye. But at the same time, one of the things that is happening right now is this is the fucking funnest time I've ever had in my life. And I just want to always be working on this. So I get up every day and we go after it, and the team we've assembled is just nightmarishly good, and we keep getting new people that show up that are really look like they're puzzle pieces that fit in at just the right time, and we're continuing to grow, and we keep getting people that say, look, we want to get involved, and we keep getting potential customers that say, look, how do we use this thing? And so what keeps me up at night is that. If you're asking what are the existential risks, Well, I think a lot of those are pretty well past us now. What ended up happening with the consensus mining is we got enough hash rate that ultimately proof of stake could be staved off. We could keep the developer efforts focused on this, the XMiner, the network, the relayer, all the stuff that we need to build. And we could go ahead and just let the mining continue, the consensus mining continue the way it was. I think a lot of the old project animosities that were there over the last couple of years have sort of dissipated. Those people kind of burnt themselves out in trying to kill us. I think they realized that we're serious about sticking around. We are, and we're here. So I don't know, there's probably some attack vectors out there that we haven't dreamt of yet, but I think really right now, the real key right now is to get this thing into customers' hands, and then after that, then we'll probably go back and get some sleep.
Okay. I've got another question which I don't quite understand, BS, if you want to rephrase it, but he's saying, how can a guy like me get into being a certified EXA unit up here in Oregon? I don't know if maybe he wants to look into doing something like Juicy, or he wants to...
If you want to build your own systems for sale to other people, what you're going to end up doing is sending us a unit for free, and we will validate that unit, tear it down, make sure that it really, does fit the need and looks like the assembly is good and components are all right. And then at the end of the day, if it does work, we'll go ahead and essentially make good and cover you back for the value of the unit. If it doesn't work, we'll just send it back to you and shake hands and say, sorry, this is not going to pass muster, and please go back and fix this, and this, and you can get back in and do it. If you just want to build your own node, what you're going to end up having to do is buy a license, and then once you buy a license, apply it to a computer, and then just keep monitoring your uptime and tweaking and tuning to make sure you're online.
Yeah, he clarified just like Juicy there. So sounds like a partnership to help build the infrastructure if he provides quality, and it will get a snake seal of approval, and you can go from there. I think that's about it. I don't have anything else unless you've got something you want to touch base on last minute. We've been streaming for half an hour. I think that's kind of the sweet spot.
I think the licensing is really going to be an interesting vehicle for us going forward. And what people are asking most right now is what is included in the full license. Is there still going to be a standard license? And, will DIY basic licenses ultimately ever go away, or what? And the way I would say that right now is, no matter what happens, we'll always grandfather a DIY license. If you sell a DIY license to you somewhere down the road, we'll grandfather, and you'll be able to continue it as long as you have it. And you have my word on that, and it's not something that I take lightly. The standard license is going away. There were only 24 sold because we couldn't really elucidate why it made any sense. And ultimately, it doesn't make sense. The only thing that makes sense is to do a DIY, which is you building the complete thing yourself and doing everything yourself, or the XMiner experience, where we give you the full software that does everything: accounting, alerting, the ability to do remote access into multiple units, the ability to do auto sells, all kinds of things related to the wallet, Explorer, everything that's baked into that setup. So that really is, I think, the future, and I think a lot of people are going to be heading in that direction. But that said, a lot of people that we talk to don't want to build computers, don't want to be in that business of minding the store. They want to buy something, they want to just put it, they want to put it on their bookshelves in their living room. Oddly, I didn't really understand.
Conversation starter. You walk in and see this, go, what the heck is that?
Didn't really understand that, but okay, I get it now. I get it. And so they just want to buy it and plug it in and forget it.
Yeah, I know I've got mine tucked away in my master bedroom, and I can easily access it, and I can hear it and check on it, but I don't think I would be a living room kind of piece. I've got kids, and they're going to knock it over. I mean, besides that, though, it's a very, very solid, sturdy device, but I don't want to put that risk there.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, again, thank you for having me here. I've had a great time. We experienced a lot of cool things. I'm going to have some great stuff coming to the channel, and I just can't thank you enough. I'm truly appreciative of this opportunity.
Well, we're really appreciative that you showed up. I mean, I think there might have been some confusion, or I'm not really sure what the correct word is here, about how we have engaged the YouTube community and some of the more high-profile streamers in the passive income world and so forth. There were some accusations hurled along the way, and there were some things. I think what I said to you earlier is what I really believe, and I think it's one of the reasons why you're here. I don't mind the clickbait stuff. I mean, I understand how this thing works. I understand how, you have to draw attention to get eyes into things these days because there's too much vying for attention. And at the end of the day, I'm all right with that. I'm totally fine with that. What I'm not really fine with is when people sort of try and, hide the message. And I don't think you've done that at all. And I actually don't think I know Fonz Fines didn't do it, and I don't think Action Crypto did it, or Action CEO did it. I think you guys did a pretty responsible job. I think that, the thumbnails were a little challenging and put us against the wall a little bit, but it made us stronger and it made us better at what we do. And so at the end of the day, we didn't kick you out of our community or say, we don't want you around. Because ultimately, if you watched your videos through and through, you did tell the truth. You told the story, and you did tell it correctly. You said, look, we didn't tell you you're getting a Lambo next month.
Right.
There's a Lambo out there. It's just going to be like everything else. You're going to get it over time, and you're going to have to essentially keep your unit up, garden it, water it, do all the things you have to do. And at the end, if you choose to spend your money on a Lambo, well, congratulations.
All right, so that gives me one final question then. When moon?
I think the stock market's about to go into depression mode, actually. I don't know.
I was just ready for you to push me out of my chair and be like, get out of here, I'm done, I'm going home.
There's no moon on the horizon as far as No. I want to actually address this, and I got to be careful. Everybody knows that I'm not a person who pumps the coin because first of all, there's no reason to. And I think this is important for everybody to know, because when you look at our coin, there are two miners, right, in our coin. There's a consensus miner, and then there's a miner which hardcore purists will say is not a miner.
Miner.
Right. It's really just a coin aggregation machine. I don't know what you want to call it, but they will tell you it's not, because it doesn't participate in consensus at all.
Right.
Well, the thing being is that people don't understand about that is in consensus mining, we're 85% of the coin emission. We're almost to the end. You take something like Filecoin, for instance, and they're in the very early one-digit percentage of their emission. So they have millions and millions and millions and millions of coins still to come to the market. So one of the things that happens when the emission starts to get really tight is the coin is scarce. It's hard to get the coin. And when the coin starts getting scarce and it gets hard to get the coin, typically price reacts to that. And when price reacts to that, we all sort of know what that looks like. So what I always sort of tend to tell people that are getting involved in this from a passive income standpoint is you kind of have to factor that in to how you're going to earn on this thing, right? And I'm not saying to you that we're going to go out there and pump the hell out of the coin. It's going to go flying high in the sky and, moon. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is there's a pretty good chance if you get in today and sack away a number of coins in the early going, what will happen is you will probably look back in hindsight in a year or two and realize that first year or two, the majority of your money was made on coin appreciation. And might not happen that way, by the way. Might go the other way. I don't know, but I would think with the scarcity the way it is, you're probably going to end up in that situation. And so then if you really wanted the answer to your question, when moon, it's probably 3 or 4 years from now in terms of when moon on the miner. As far as when does the coin find its fair value in comparison to other projects like Filecoin, Storage, Saya, Arweave, all the people whose networks we are larger than and whose coin price we are way below, I think that probably happens sometime over the next, year.
Yeah, and it's interesting you bring them up because Henry and I were looking earlier to see if we could find the actual data and the storage on those other projects, and they don't release that information.
Yeah.
Like you can do an easy Google search and find exactly how much data is available. I think there's 1.06 petabytes right now is being stored there, and that's with this not even being launched and live with those devices.
And some of that's our data, some of it's our testing data that we've been putting out there. Some of it's actual customers who are helping us out with beta testing. So it's weird, it's sort of hybrid. It's not necessarily testing data because it's actual real data coming from someone that somewhere down the road is going to be actually paying money. Mm-hmm. But right now they're getting a free ride out of it because they're helping us to test the network itself. So.
Yeah. I was going to make one quick joke about the Wind Moon. I heard a rumor that one of the Discord community members is taking a trip into space next year, or in 2024. And if he brought like a miner with him and kind of just tossed it, I mean, technically it would moon there.
Why does everybody want to go into space? It's fucking cold in space.
I don't know. I jumped out of an airplane, pulled a parachute, and I was good on that. So.
Well, I don't really know the answer to that. I guess when he does go up there, he's going to take a selfie because that's what he does. So if there's something that says SCP on it when he does it, I'd be appreciative.
It could be the first crypto getting recognition in space. Or if he leaves a data storage device up there, we have one floating around. So, but anyway, let's wrap it up from there. Anything we can always circle back later, maybe as the Relay project goes live, we can do a little Zoom call together or something and kind of circle back in a little bit of time, see where we're at.
Sounds great.
Well, again, thank you very much for having me. Everyone, thank you very much for watching. Thanks for being here with us here at NAB, and I look forward to bringing you guys an final update video and the content that I've taken while I was here. So thank you, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'll see you guys later.